Okay, this is how we start our podcast. Nico.
This
is what we do. We don't have an intro.
This is Nico. This is what we do. This is what we do.
We will start with the episode number. We are officially on episode 7, and we. Am I right?
Yeah, lucky
7?
number
okay.
7.
Ah,
yeah.
And we officially have our first guest.
Yay! Dun, dun, dun.
Thank
Nico.
He's a good man for doing this. He's a good man for doing this because we have about zero experience having guests on our podcast. In fact, this is the first time that we've ever even had 2 working mics.
Yeah.
But look, me and Crystal still get to share a mic, so her dreams continue to come true week after week. So why don't you introduce our wonderful guest here?
Yes. Well, Nico, thank you for joining us. I got the pleasure to meet Nico in a community here in Toronto. Actually, no, it wasn't through a community. It was through a friend in a community. And then Nico and I met up, sat in ceremony with each other. And then he invited me to Colombia to help facilitate a men's group.
Oh, that was like recently-ish.
That was
Wasn't
3
it like
years ago.
That was, I think,
2020, right?
2-3 years ago.
2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, just before COVID.
I knew you then.
Yeah,
Right?
before
Just
COVID.
before COVID.
That's
Yeah,
right.
just
Yeah.
before COVID. And that was such an experience. Such an experience. It was beautiful to, number one, it was my first time working with just men.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was mind-blowing. And to be fully in a community, because they call it Yahé. It's the same as Ayahuasca, but it's the grandfather. Is it the grandfather? Because Ayahuasca is the grandmother. So explain this one for me.
Yeah,
The difference between Yahé and Ayahuasca.
So the way that it was explained to me by a Colombian shaman was that, like, when I asked him what's the difference between Ayahuasca and Yahé, which is the name that we have for the medicine in Colombia, he said, "Oh, Ayahuasca is soft."
It's soft.
So first I thought that it's because, like, everyone is proud of their own soccer team, and he's a Colombian shaman, of course. He's gonna say
Yeah.
his medicine is the stronger one. But we've had people that have come from Peru and have reassured that it was very different.
Okay.
And it can have more masculine undertone and energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So why did you ask Crystal, were you the only female there?
No.
Why did you bring a female along? Like, what's the sort of, like, what's the point of that to a men's group? Is there a reason behind that or not really?
Yes. Yeah. In that specific retreat, in the retreats, if I have a connection with someone, and I trust my judgment, and I feel, oh, this person, our group will benefit from this person coming and being there. What happens is that so this was a retreat where there was part of it that was workshop and a part of it that was plant medicine, and the men that were coming there were coming for different reasons. Trauma, confusion, relational issues, like lack of purpose or direction, or just a distance from their own power. And for a few of them also distance from healthy relationships with women that often start because of the way their father is, because the way their mother is.
Family dynamics.
Yeah. And usually when men are seeking to do their own work, when we are doing our own work, what we're looking for is to be reparented by someone that we can trust and that will maybe parent us or guide us or extend a loving hand in the way that we wish we had before. And usually that's the way that we seek it out. And what happens is that for a lot of men, being reparented means that they have a man that can guide them lovingly, the way that maybe their father didn't do,
Yeah.
because he was either absent or violent, like either too
Yeah.
absent or too present in a way that was overbearing.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable playing that role for many men,
nice.
of an older brother, or for some of them maybe like a parental guidance. Not always. There's also men that I look like we see eye to eye, and it's more the absence of healthy masculine connection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
With that being said, almost every man that I've worked with, no matter how many businesses they run, how much money they make, whether they have children or wife, often they have things that are unaddressed or remain unaddressed with the feminine.
Yeah.
And it starts with the mother. It continues with their romantic partners, but it always starts with the mother.
Totally.
And for many of them, just not being told that they are loved, not being accepted as men, especially if they had sisters. Like, why are you so active? Why are you like this?
Right.
Why aren't you like your sisters? Right? A misunderstanding of the differences between
Male
the
energy and
so for me, it's important always to have at least a woman that can be that source of that can play the role of the feminine, and that can be like, she can be the loving mother, she can represent use the feminine as, like, she can represent the partners, because different things come up that wouldn't come up if there were no women there.
So you need somebody who, like you were just saying, when you meet somebody, you kind of have to gauge what it is that they sort of need from you, and you would need a female facilitator who has those similar kind of instincts, right? Who can kind of gauge, what does this person sort of need from me right now, right? Like, is it, like you were saying, more from the partner or more like maternal?
And in a way, like, you know, a part of that can be paternal, maternal, but just beyond those archetypes, I think men and women are deprived and extremely, like, in states of extreme deprivation and starvation for loving connection with both male and female.
Yes, 100%.
So for a lot of men, to be in ceremony or in connection with a woman or with women that are not there judging them, that are not there like gossiping about them, that are not there belittling them, that are not there thinking, oh, he's, because I don't find him attractive, then I'm gonna put him down, or that are not there overly focused on the ways in which he falls short, which today a lot of women do.
Yes, they do.
With their partners, with their boyfriends, with their kids sometimes. Like let's see everything that is wrong with my partner, with my, it starts with the father as well. Men do that also with women. It's not just one way. But we're deprived of healthy connection, and the issue with that is that we don't know how deprived we are until we have healthy connection. And the flavor of the connection with a man and with a woman is always going to be different. So the invitation for Crystal to join us was, I could see in her that she was a loving feminine woman that could extend that space to the men that were coming. That could be playful, funny, mischievous, and motherly as well, if needed, and it was needed.
It was. Times, there was a lot of hugging.
I'm sure you were miserable.
And that was my favorite time. I'm like, do you need a hug? I'm like, oh yeah, come here, amor.
Amazing. Okay, so that's how you guys connected.
And
this is essentially what you do, because we'd love to share with people just sort of, this is what you do, right? You facilitate these retreats often for men, right?
So
give us your everything.
That's 3 years ago. That is primarily what I did.
Okay.
Like, I worked most of my 20s. As a dating and relationship coach for men. I work with a movement called Arsa Morata, and like, we travel around the world hosting workshops and
No
events
way.
and retreats for men
You
that
like
wanted,
missed out on that chunk of telling me that. That's really interesting.
and for men that wanted to learn to connect better with women from a
Yeah.
place of honesty.
Yeah.
Like, because
Yeah.
there was a whole pickup industry.
Oh my gosh,
of-
yeah. It's
a
like
lot of
worse now
nonsense.
than ever before.
We had a like we used to like rehabilitate guys that were coming from that
Right.
industry, and teaching them, hey, like you can be yourself and be loved because of it, not in spite of it.
Yes.
So you were in your 20s then?
Yeah, so most of my 20s I was working with them, and I was like, I met the coaching team. They invited me to be a coach.
Yeah.
So a big part of my work was around relationships, dating, and more, and the bigger chunk was for men to feel that they could be men,
Yeah.
that they didn't have to be the nice guy, they didn't have to be the asshole either.
Yeah.
They can be themselves and be loved.
Put themselves
Because-
in such boxes, right? Because
Yeah.
when you're consuming that kind of content, it has to be really simplified. If you're
Mm-hmm.
just doing 10, 15-minute clips on YouTube, and then now it's even shorter because of TikTok and the
Mm-hmm.
way that I know, because I have teenagers, but this is like the
Yeah.
whole reason we do this podcast is because we're moms. And you watch them try to take something that's really complicated,
Yeah.
like the relationship between men and women, and how to sort of gain the affections of women, and try to condense that down to like 1 minute.
I
And
know.
it's really toxic when you watch it. You're like, oh, I see where they're going with that, but
Yeah.
having it simplified to 1 minute to try to encompass the whole body of work is like can be pretty toxic.
Well, relationships are very nuanced.
Yeah.
We can't put how to connect well with a human being. That's a lifelong exploration.
Yeah.
In 1 minute, we can attempt to give the basics, but we'll end up in generalizations that people
Yeah.
misinterpret and sometimes feel hurt by. So anyway, so I was working with men in that, and then as my own journey evolved, I realized that the problem is not that the guy doesn't know what to say to a girl he likes, or
Yeah.
that he lacks confidence, or because we used to work everything from 19-year-old guys who were too shy to speak to a girl they like,
Newbies. Yeah.
Yeah.
to 55-year-old recently divorced men who are thinking, I want to fall in love again, and
Yeah.
I've been out of the dating pool for like 20
Yeah,
years,
yeah,
and
yeah.
It's me.
and I don't know.
My poor dad. My poor dad's in that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I started seeing that it always went back to something similar, which was some trauma, some early pain
Okay.
that unfolded in a closure,
Yeah.
right? And I understood through my own pain, my own dysfunction in relationships that like I thought I knew how to have a healthy relationship, and I realized, oh no, like there's so much stuff that isn't addressed.
Right.
So I'm from Colombia, and I ended up going back to Colombia and working with indigenous shamans
Okay.
with ayahuasca predominantly, because it brings up a lot of things. It makes you face those parts, and it makes you remember those memories that perhaps are shoved. That was 3 years ago. Like now, like fast forward to today, sure, we still organize retreats in the community,
Yeah.
but the bigger part of my work right now is I work with men, women, and couples
Yeah.
that are committed to each other and that want to transition the relationships from being mediocre to being conscious.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who are married or in long-term relationships that nobody teaches us how to connect properly.
Yeah.
No.
Nobody
they don't.
teaches us how to navigate an argument in a healthy way.
Yeah.
How to repair when we've made a mistake.
Yeah.
How to repair when the other has made a mistake. How to nourish intimacy.
It's even less than not teaching us. It's like, I know that's from speaking to so many people, we haven't been shown it.
Well,
You know?
or even embody it, right? Like, it's like, this is what the one thing I do with my clients. It's like, what are your pleasures? And they're like, and I'm like, let's figure it out. Let's figure out our pleasure paths.
It
Because
really
it's
is
a pleasure
like-
paths. There's so many, you can go down so many.
I was going to say, it's a rabbit hole.
It's so many
and you
little
must feel like that
extra
with your work.
things.
You've probably taken a long time to sort of get yourself into a place where, because like we just said, we just went down a crazy rabbit hole there. We went from like, okay, nobody's like taught you how to do that. Nobody's seen it. Oh, you don't even know your own pleasure. Like
Yeah.
you're right. It's incredibly nuanced and it's incredibly complicated. And not even just in like your romantic relationships, but friendship relationships, familiar relationships, like
Your relationship with
they're
yourself.
they're so complicated. They're so
Yeah.
complicated. So like, what you said you were doing that since you were 20. What is it that sort of drew you to that, just in general, like the connection? And
the one question I would like to ask you is like, for all of your time doing all of that, what brought you there? What was that what
was a calling, clearly.
Right? So there's this
Yeah.
unconscious relationships. What was the one, like, what were the ones that you were like, okay, I've had enough, I want to grow the F up, I want to step into my manhood? Like, what was that moment for you when you were like, no more of this little pity immature boy games anymore? I'm going to step into the manhood. And what was that for you? Like, what is manhood? What is masculinity to you? So there's two questions there. Sorry.
So what drew me to this?
Yeah.
My own confusion at the beginning. I think as men or as boys,
Yes.
we're never like growing up in Colombia. Like, sex is shameful. You better not make out with your girlfriend in front of your parents.
Yeah.
You have to go to a park and hide if you want to keep her. Not anymore, but
yeah.
beyond that, nobody teaches you how to talk to a girl that you're attracted to.
Yeah.
You're just winging it and trying to play cool, and hopefully she's gonna like me. And
Yeah.
maybe if I show up in a nice car, then
Yeah.
so you start playing the games that you see adults playing, which is I need to be popular. The big asshole guy with
Muscular
tattoos
guy,
gets the girls. Or
yeah.
maybe I should go to the gym and get some tattoos.
Yeah.
And then you realize, well, this isn't working, or
Yeah.
maybe you attract somebody that is, and then there's a lot of tension.
Yeah.
So the beginning of my journey was that, just from coming from a place of confusion and growing up extremely shy and not knowing how to talk to women or to anybody for that matter, and trying to figure it out. But the journey evolved because, sure, then I was able to get into relationships, but then they will end within a year to 3 years. And then there was one relationship that ended in a way that was very rough
Okay.
for her and for me.
Yeah.
Rough because I thought I knew what relationships were supposed to be like. I had been already coaching and teaching, and then it went sideways in many ways.
Yeah.
There was a lot of resentment, borderline hatred, and just a lot of pain present there. And I didn't understand how did it turn this ugly? What happened?
Yeah.
And I understood that is the question of someone that has not been paying attention. Like, if you wake up one day and look at your partner and think, like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
That means you fell asleep the whole ride.
Yeah.
Oh, where am I?
Yeah.
If you were paying attention, you will exactly know how you got there.
Yeah, that's true. That's a super valid point. Yeah.
And for me, I realized that there was just a lot of pain I caused her in many ways by my own immaturity, by wanting to have my needs and my compulsions be met, and by doing whatever I wanted to do without compassion, without inclusion.
Yeah.
And then in that moment I understood, like, whoa, I understood that, like, I've been living like a little boy most of my life, expecting for them, like, what is a boy? A boy is a human being, a male human being that needs mommy to take care of him.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
Because a boy needs,
It's
the little
beautiful.
baby needs for mommy to
Yeah.
feed him, otherwise he will die.
Yeah.
So a boy needs to be taken care of.
Yes.
Needs to be provided for by the feminine.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. The problem is when that perpetuates into adulthood. Then
Yeah. But
then
you see
then
a
I
lot
become
of that now too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was a big chunk of adult men are like man boys.
Well,
which
they're still it's
we-
immature
Oh
masculine.
yeah, and then just what I need or what I'm out to take is no longer milk or food or attention
Yeah.
necessarily, but sex,
Yeah.
validation,
Yeah.
comfort, nourishment, without feeling that I need to give anything back. Because the baby doesn't need to give anything back to the mother. It's
Exactly.
No, they
that's-
don't. No.
that's-
Yeah.
that's-
Just kidding. I love my children.
We love you boys very much.
Yeah.
But yeah, just their existence is enough.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to think that life works like that as you grow up
Yeah.
is erroneous, because you have different responsibilities, different roles that you play.
Yeah.
And I realized, like I have not thought beyond what I need and what I want.
Yeah.
I just realized I don't feel like a man.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means to be a man. I don't know.
Beautiful.
And nobody taught me, because then I'm thinking, well, my dad is probably a man, and then I see his relationship with my mom crumbled over unfaithfulness.
Yeah.
In many ways, he was a man, responsible, hardworking, etc. But in some other ways, he was still trying to get it his way. Like there was a boyish side that just wanted to take from her and from another woman and just get it his way in a sneaky manner.
Yeah.
So that set out the I guess the not later half, but that part of my journey of understanding. All right, there's clearly a transition that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Where I grow from being like boyish in my relationship with life, where I don't want to take responsibility.
Yeah.
I have no concern about others' well-being, just my own pleasure, into a place where I feel that I'm operating in harmony with life. And I saw modern society does not have good reference points.
I was gonna say that there's no, and I talk about this with my husband a lot because he's a youth football coach, and we talk about it often that he says that for him, like there's nothing anymore to go like, okay, you're gonna take this group of boys, you're gonna go out into the woods for 2 weeks, all the women stay behind, and you guys are going to feel what it feels like to be a man, right? And he said when he's coaching, he tries to implement that into it, because there's really nothing, especially in the Western society, there is nothing to say, like driver's license and graduating from high school is like, that's not it. You know, it's way deeper and more powerful than that. And he's like, there's just nothing in society like that.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, so I like to try to use football because it is so physically taxing and mentally taxing. He's like, I like to try to use that to sort of help shape them into men, because he feels like he didn't. And same thing, he had a very loving father, still does have a very loving father, but wasn't like, okay, you need to go do this, you need to go do that. Like same thing, sort of just was okay with letting him sort of be a boy forever. So for my husband, that's a big thing. He always tries to find places where he can try to elevate the boys into being men by facilitating these types of things that are challenging and that are hard, and that it's like they're forced to do it on their own or as a group, right? Because we just don't have that.
Yeah, it is, and it is very necessary. Like around that time I realized that we don't have it, but almost every single culture throughout history had their own rites of passage.
Rites of passage, yeah.
That boy into manhood,
Yeah.
right? That rites of passage. It's like, where has that gone?
Yeah.
Where has that gone? Even for young girls, it's the same thing. Where's that, like, your sweet 16?
Yeah.
It's just a drunken party.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's what it was for me. No serious growth there whatsoever.
Yeah. So, but fortunately, there are people that have kept these traditions alive. It's just not very well known.
Yeah.
But after that breakup, where I spiraled into drug addiction, alcoholism, promiscuity. I had a couple of overdoses.
I know. When I read that, I was like, when I was reading, I was like, I didn't know Nico almost OD'd. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. That's a life-changing event.
When I was reading it, I was just like, Nico never shared that with me. I was like, oh, okay.
He's got to have his surprises.
Yes.
A lot of pain that I didn't know how to process just made me realize I don't know anything about life, about who I am, about what it means to be a man, about what it means to be a good partner. I don't nothing.
You feel like imposter syndrome kind of kicked in a bit? Because you said you were coaching and teaching at that
time.
Oh,
for sure. I had to stop because I realized, what am I teaching these guys? If my own relationship didn't work out, then
amazing.
For sure I don't get it. So I stopped cold, like, okay, it's definitely not, it didn't work for me. Yeah. It's probably not gonna work for these guys.
Yeah.
And then around that time, I was fortunate enough that I connected with a friend that was going on a vision quest.
Okay.
And a vision quest is, for those that don't know, is a rite of passage from. And there were many different tribes and cultures that had that. But the tradition that I did it with, basically, what you're prepared by a shaman for a few months,
Okay.
and then you go into nature to fast for 4 days and 4 nights by yourself.
By yourself?
By yourself.
Without.
By yourself.
So
Oh,
they give you a hammock. Well, I mean, back in the day, like nothing, but today they give you a hammock and a tarp, and then you have to go into the mountains. You find a place that
And you
calls
did this?
a place that calls you,
Okay.
and you build a circle around it with stones and twigs, and that's where you spend the next 4 days and 4 nights, fasting.
Was that the first time you'd ever done anything
Usually, like that, yes.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I don't know who I am, and how to know myself if I don't spend enough time with myself.
Right.
I realized I'm always doing something.
Yeah.
My me time is partying, is watching a movie, is reading a book.
Right.
I'm in relation with something.
Like filling space.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought I need to, and I need a few days of just sitting and maybe thinking about my life or trying to understand like who am I, what am I, and that seemed perfect.
Yeah.
You have no distraction. There's nobody else around. There's no food.
Yeah.
You can do it without water as well. You're on dry fasting.
Yeah.
And you're on your own in the middle of I did it in the south of France in a forest reserve with a shaman that was there, and it forces you to be connected to yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
And the way that it used to be done back in the day, a vision quest it was a rites of passage from boyhood to manhood, and the boys will be casted out into the desert, into the mountains, into the caves, on their own, to face nature and their own nature.
Yeah.
And they had until they understood who they were and what they were here to do and what their role was as a man and what they were going to give back to the community.
Yeah.
And they will only come back after they had like a profound clarity of this. Otherwise, they better not come back. And some of these boys will die, and they will take it as he didn't get his vision. So it's better that he's gone than he comes back into the tribe as a man boy, as someone that is still gonna take. No, like we they leave a boy, and they were prepared by the elder of the community, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The women stay behind, the men prepare them, and then the elder kind of initiate them. Like, all right, like, now you understand what it means to be a man.
That's wild.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it is.
I'm ready to send our boys out. Nico, are you going to start? I think
So
he should start a
facilitated
program. He'll be like 14 to 16 years old.
Because we know you guys are watching this.
Yes.
Every week we say the same thing.
We're sending you with Nico.
If you keep watching this, you're going on a vision quest with Nico.
They're probably going to be like, okay, we'll do it.
Oh, fine. Like you get to watch this podcast? Fine, I will. Yeah. Well, that's pretty wild. So you had that, like, obviously that was like life altering for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I saw the nonsense that was filling my days.
Yeah.
Because at one point you go a little crazy because you realize
Oh my God, yeah.
I have nothing to do and the mind starts ramping, and you realize how sick we have allowed our minds to be, and also how you feel like you're gonna die, and it confronts you like, okay, if tomorrow night I'm gonna die, like how did I live? And then I spent my time on Tinder drinking this, and then it was like what a waste.
Yeah.
Wow.
And how much did I love, or how deeply did I love? There was this 1 or 2 women that I actually opened that fully to.
Yeah.
And then broke their heart because I wanted to get laid with some other girls that I thought were hotter. And just realizing that, like the grief over destroyed beauty, over like unconscious living.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me was the bigger
That must have been wild.
wake up call. Like at one point I'm sobbing and thinking.
I was gonna say you probably shed a lot of tears.
Yeah, and I'm
4
thinking,
days.
and I'm thinking, because one of the practices of the shaman tells you is like on the full moon that there's one day that you wake up, and from the moment that you wake up until you go to sleep, you prepare to die. You convince yourself, you tell yourself, tonight the time that I close my eyes to go to sleep,
Yeah.
I will not wake up.
Yeah.
So you live the whole day in preparation for that, but you can't call anybody, you can't do anything. You're just sitting there thinking, when I fall asleep tonight,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna die, and you convince yourself that that's gonna happen, and you see what comes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people say, oh, like, why will you try to like force yourself to think you're gonna die? Well,
It's kind of inevitable.
it is a reality.
Yeah.
We can,
Yes.
like, for everybody, we don't have, it is not guaranteed that we'll make it through the day,
Yeah.
but we take it for granted, and that's why
Yeah.
we live in a way that is very disconnected, because we take for granted we're going to have more time to call the people that we love, to do the
Yeah.
things that are important to us, to share our heart, to
Yeah.
oh, I'm afraid, I'm shy, and for like, the young people watching this, there's so
Yeah.
many fears that when you think, if you didn't have time, all of that just vanishes. Like,
Totally.
it's meaningless.
It is. It's meaningless.
Like, who cares what other people think?
Yeah.
When you're confronted with death, you realize what is truly essential, which
Yeah.
means of the essence of your essence, and then that becomes the guiding light. So yeah, that for me was the bigger part, like realizing, like, one of the things that like broke me down was, like, I love my grandma. Like, for me she was like a mother,
Yeah.
maybe more present than my mother, because my mom was working, and I loved her so much, and I missed her so much when I was there. And I realized, wow, it's been a few months since I called her, and every time I call her, she's like blissful in joy, because
She is.
and I realized
Oh, wow.
I realized how messed up is that. And the last 3 months, I spent more time on Tinder, talking to girls I never met and then didn't like.
Yeah.
I spent more time just in meaningless conversations, trying to meet somebody to rub bodies with.
Yeah.
And I did not spend 15 minutes to call my grandma. Like
Yeah.
that was one of my bigger regrets. And it was like the way that my priorities were set up,
Yeah.
where family was way down, and then what, pleasure at the top,
Yeah.
at the expense of everything else. So that process felt like my life was this knot and this big mess, and it's like separating the threads and then seeing very clearly, and seeing, well, this has to go, and this has to go, and this has to go, and then coming back with clarity of, like,
Did it stick?
yeah, I mean, it was,
Yeah.
of course, the integration is a lifelong journey.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, oh, I came back and then I was a good
It doesn't
man.
work like
Yeah.
that.
No,
Yeah.
then suddenly, but at least now I know in what direction
Yeah.
I want to go.
Because
Well, you're
you've also-
conscious now, right? You're conscious of what is going on now. You're
What?
like, okay.
But when you come back, you've also got a trail of stuff that you left behind,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
it's like you can't expect, you might have, like you said, that, thank goodness, I'm sure your grandmother was very forgiving. But even something like that, right? It's now that you've had this clarity, like, oh Lord, I should have been spending so much more time, and I feel good when I talk to her, she feels good when I talk to her. But there was still such a huge lapse of time where you didn't do that, right? And it's like, I find that one of the things that can happen, I have found this for myself, but when I talk to other people as well, is when you personally go through this transformation, it's almost like you want everything to catch up to where you are, but you have fucked up before, and you've got a whole, like, a lot of baggage that you've got to clear. But I feel like that's part of the process too,
Yes.
you know?
Yes, yeah, clearing the air with people that you feel, that you honestly feel you had wrong,
Yeah.
and you never extended an apology to. Like, I spent probably the next 2 years after that.
Yeah.
Like, I will travel and I will be in a city where I remember that a few years ago I met some girl, and I remember I was a bit of an ass, or she fell in love, and I just like,
Yeah.
oh, see you, I'm traveling. And I spent like 2 years where I sent a lot of letters to women I had been intimate with,
Yeah.
apologizing, saying, hey, like I'm looking back at the time we spent together, and I realized that like I didn't value how open
Yeah.
you share your heart with me, and I just want you to know that I recognize that, and I am sorry I put you
Yeah.
through the pain that I put you through. And
How was that received? How was that received by the women?
Most of the times, like, very well, like,
Yeah.
Beautiful.
shocking, like oh wow, like I didn't expect that.
Beautiful.
A lot of times there was a lot of compassion, like, hey, like no worries, like I knew where you were at, and it was a mutual choice, and
Yeah.
I knew what I was signing up for. Like a lot of them, like more responsible ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were just one of them that replied with a lot of bitterness and pain and maybe hatred,
Yeah.
and I felt like there was still it was still very fresh for her.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, it was good, and I felt like more than how it was received for me, it was like cleaning the canvas, clearing the air.
Yeah.
Like I felt that I acted in a way that was not nourishing or caring, and I felt bad about that. And I wanted to make sure that the women with whom I was careless knew that I was sorry, that I could understand their pain. Yeah. And I mean, I was not being violent or taking advantage or lying. I was just very
an immature masculine
yeah.
man.
I was just like, hey, I would tell him like, hey, I only do open relationships and traveling.
Yeah, so you were an honest, immature masculine man.
Yeah, like if that was it. I say if I'm not with you, I'm probably with other girls. I want you to know that up front. I'm not offering a relationship, not right now, not ever. Like don't engage in this with hopes of something. Like kind of like here's the deal, take it or leave it. And
I find though it doesn't because I was similar, and I feel like I would put it out there, right? But I think I felt, just like in my experience, I found that a lot of like the men would agree to it, but I could tell that that's not what they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were just so like infatuated with me or the relationship, and I kind of like knew that. And we talked about this a lot lately, and I had to revisit that a couple years ago and be like, because I always would just blame them. I'm like, no, I put it out there. I told them, this is how I am. You are getting into trouble if you're trying to fuck around with me, because it's going to be a disaster for you, right?
Yeah.
And they would just be like, no, it's cool. And then I knew they weren't cool with it, though. I knew they weren't. Deep down, I knew they weren't cool with it, and the same kind of thing, and I would just kind of dispose of them. And, I've been coming to grips with that actually a lot over the last few years. But I haven't said sorry or anything yet because, I don't know.
She's not there yet. And you go, oh, maybe she needs to go for the vision quest.
4 days.
4 days.
I would.
Women do it too.
Yes,
really?
of course they do. Yes.
Oh God.
There's some here in Canada.
We'll start easy. We'll go like 2 hours without your phone in your bedroom. Okay. And then work my way up. Amazing. Okay. And then from there, okay, so was that sort of a shift, and I'm going to kind of blanket term it, but like, was that sort of a shift for you into the more sort of like spiritual realms, or was that in you before?
The curiosity about spirituality was since I was a kid.
Okay.
But it was it cleared the noise enough so that I could start again listening to the part of me that was interested about like what else there is to life.
Yeah.
It was always there, but at one point I was so consumed by partying and women and fitting in that there was no space for that. And I think that's the way that it is for most people. It's not, because spirituality is not an interest. It's not a personality thing. It's a trait I developed. I like music. I like spirituality. I like watching movies. It's not that. Like spirituality is the tendency of evolution of the life that we are. So it's the flow. Is like the river goes towards the ocean. That's how it is. It's not by intention. It's not because it sat on the mountain thinking, do I want to be a lake or a... No, that's how it flows. And that's how it flows for everybody. Like the spiritual journey, just some people, the call is a little whisper. For some it's shouting on their ears. And everyone's trail is very different. But but only when the water gets clogged, then you start thinking, maybe I'm a little pond. That's who I am. I'm not interested in the ocean. No, it's just you're stuck. But if there's enough water flowing, you'll realize that that's where you're heading. So that experience allowed to like clear a lot of, well, not a lot, but to begin the process of clearing this, so that suddenly I understand what my heart wants a little bit more. Right?
That's very interesting.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then
Now you're an author.
I know,
Yes.
he is. And I got the
Yeah.
pleasure to read this. It was amazing.
Oh, you read it already?
Well, I've read most of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read
But the
most
Kindle
of it.
version,
The
yes?
Kindle version.
'Cause it's
yes.
available in
Yeah.
Kindle.
Yes, it is. I got it for
with your
quite a
amazing
price.
voice, you should do.
You
You should do the audiobook.
Because I was thinking
Do
of,
it,
I was
do
thinking, I was
it.
like, is there an audio book? I was like, I'm like, I'd like that.
You
And
should.
Nico.
Come on.
I'm sure a lot of ladies be like, okay, we'll get that book now. If
Yeah,
we can
it's
hear that
really
Colombian
soothing
sexy voice.
Narrated by
So-
Fabio.
I love it. So from what I know, grace was brought to you during ceremony.
During Ayahuasca
Yeah,
ceremony.
during
Yeah.
ceremony, it came to him. So can you give us a little recap on that, if you don't mind, sweetheart?
So, I mean, I don't know those of you watching how familiar you are with plant medicines, with ceremonies, but
They're a little
Psych-
bit. I like them into my world.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So ayahuasca is a psychoactive brew that it is used predominantly by indigenous tribes of the Amazon, and in the last 50 years has spread all
Yeah.
over. But when you're in ceremony, you enter a state of trance where you have visions, understandings about yourself. Anyways, it's been used to heal many things, and that's why they call it ancestral medicine, because it is the medicine of indigenous communities. But this book came, there was one ceremony where I was having a rough time, and then I'm vomiting because it purges you and it cleanses you, and I'm with my bucket there on the earth, and I started seeing a lot of words just flashing by. And I thought, what is this? I don't understand. And you feel you have a conversation with the spirit of the medicine, and say, oh, it's a book that I need to read, that you need to write. And I thought, like, about what? Like, I wanted to write a book at some point in my life.
Yeah.
Like everybody,
Yeah.
oh, I want to write a book, I want to
Yeah,
write a song,
exactly.
I want to make a movie.
Bucket list.
Yeah. I thought, okay, about what? And then I felt I had a strong feeling of what the book was about, what the cover should look like.
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, you need to write this by the end of the year. I thought, and that was, I think, 3 years ago. Like, I procrastinated it.
Yeah.
And then I realized, you know what? Every time that I've done the homework that I'm given by the medicine, my life shifts in a very positive way.
Yes.
Okay.
Even if in the moment I don't understand why I'm doing that
Yes.
homework, like very simple things. Cut your hair, move this in your home, and then suddenly years later I realized why that had to happen.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what, at the very least, maybe this is a way for me to organize my thinking, my understanding. If one person is served and helped by that book, then it served a good
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
If it goes well beyond that, beautiful, lovely. So yeah, so the whole last year, the second half of last year was about what is needed, hiring a publisher and
Yeah.
going through the birthing process.
And just sitting down and writing it is no easy task either. Like,
Yeah.
literally just sitting down and writing it. It's hard.
Showing up, that's
Yeah.
the hardest part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Especially days when you probably weren't feeling very motivated, because it's not thin. It's not a tiny book. That's amazing.
A lot of beautiful exercises in there as well. So, yeah.
I love that. I love when books give you actionable things that you can do and take away from it,
So do
regardless
I.
of the theme of the book.
Well, that's what I like about podcasts as well. I want to learn. I don't want to
Yeah.
just listen. I want you to share something with me.
Yeah.
You've had a crap life, but how have you made it better now?
They are just takeaways. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. So, how has it been? How has it been since you wrote this book? Like, how's the feedback for you?
Well, he got
been
he
great.
got number 1.
It
went to number. It
in-
went the bestseller
7
on
countries.
Amazon.
Good for you.
Well, it was
dude.
Amazon,
Yeah, it
right?
was- it
yeah,
was-
I saw it. I was like, yes. I'm
Good
like,
for
we're,
you,
we're getting him
Nico.
on our show.
Yeah, it went.
Good for you.
Thank you. It went very well.
Amazing.
my favorite part has been people that have reached out saying, "Hey, Nico, just finished reading your book, and my relationship with my pain and my trauma like got redefined." And people that got a lot out of that, especially the book has practical resources.
Right.
There's a link in the book where people are invited. They click it, and then I spent a lot of time putting together certain guided meditations.
Oh, nice. Okay. Like resources, essentially.
Yeah, different
right?
resources that supplement because you can't grow by reading a book. You can, like, the spark of growth can be nourished within you.
Yeah.
But reading a book is not doing the work.
Yeah.
It can inspire you.
It can inspire
to do the work and maybe give you a map of how it may look like. But it is not doing the work.
It's like having a treadmill in your house, but not using it.
Yeah, yes. Or it's like, let's say let's say if it's a book on fitness, it can be like, hey, if this is your body type and this is how you want to look, these are the exact exercises you should do and the diet plan you should follow.
Yeah. But you just keep it up here.
Oh, that's not gonna get you fit.
I'm just gonna look at the magazine and hope I'm gonna get skinny and look like that.
You'll be surprised. A lot of people read a lot of self-development books and spiritual books on spirituality, and it just mental masturbation. It's just you're just in fantasy land.
I feel like I'm super guilty of that for a lot of things. I feel like I'm okay. So obviously, people being addicted to like social media and the internet is a kind of a chronic problem, but I've realized over like the last couple of years, I feel like I'm addicted to information and I don't really do much with it. You know what I mean? It's almost like I've just become addicted to collecting information. Like I'm a voracious reader and I always have audiobooks on the go. I always have like Kindle books on the go. Podcasts. Yeah. So I've become like addicted to like input.
Well, you were on this thing. She's like, we're lucky to be in the world we are in now, Crystal, because did you know in 1642 they didn't even have toilets. They lived like savages, Crystal.
Okay, well that was helpful because then I had a deeper appreciation for the things around me. I was looking around and I was like, God, I'm happy to be alive right now. Like learning about like the medieval times, I was like, gosh. If I did exist back then, I'm like so sorry for me that lived then, because me that lives now is so much better. Having a toothbrush is amazing. So you know what? That was good. I had a profound experience after learning so much about the medieval times.
I get all the information when she does cycle through it. She's like, did you know about this? Did you know about this? Did you know about this? I'm like, interesting, babe. Amazing.
So yeah, I feel like I'm like addicted to input, but I've got to work a little bit harder, I think, on like the output part for sure. And I've said this to you actually. The first time that Crystal like strong-armed me with like your teacher, what would you call him?
My teacher.
Yeah. To do a ceremony of sorts with her. Again, I don't know the language, whatever it was.
Ceremony, sure.
And I don't think they liked me as a client very much. But
we did. We loved you.
So many of the things that you guys kept bringing out, and I was like, yeah, I know what that is. Like, I know what that is. Yeah, I know what that does. I know all of this. I know all of this. Mm-hmm. But I don't like really apply anything. You know, I don't really like apply stuff. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm just obsessed with the absorption of the information. But yeah, I've got to figure out like a better balance, I think. So I think you have some, like, it's true. I find that, and it's exactly why I said that, when books or podcasts or whatever it is I'm consuming has something to direct me to actually be productive and do something with the information that I've just consumed, I do find that it just helps to put me on a path of do instead of just like absorb, you know? So that's beautiful. I'm glad that you applied that as well.
Yeah. Quite often I don't want to say fixation, but maybe the tendency towards consumption.
Yeah.
Is no different than, you know, maybe for you is books, podcasts, interesting information. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people can think or can say, oh, that's great. You know, a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Kalea, aka Daughter Producer. We really hope you enjoyed part 1 of this amazing podcast episode, and stay tuned next week for part 2.